Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to break down a concept that, honestly, secretly runs our entire world. It's called availability. And it explains everything from why Netflix is always working to, why your printer always decides to die at the worst possible moment.
Yeah, let's start right there, with that feeling we all know way too well. I mean, the printer jamming right when you have to print a final paper, the car just refusing to start when you're already late for a big meeting. Well, that exact moment of frustration, that's our way into a much, much bigger idea.
All right, Section 1, the uptime obsession. This is basically the science of just keeping stuff working.
So what is it? At its heart, it's just a simple measurement. Think about it. Take all the time you expect something to be working, and then you figure out what percentage of that time it actually is. That number you get, that's its availability. And let me tell you, it is the absolute key to unlocking real reliability.
Okay, so how did the pros actually measure this stuff? That brings us to Section 2, measuring what matters.
It really boils down to two super simple but powerful ideas. The first is something called mean time between failures, or MTBF. Basically, how long does the thing work before it breaks down? Obviously, you want that number to be huge, right? The longer, the better. And the second one is mean time to repair, or MTTR. Once it does break, how fast can you fix it? You want that number to be as small as humanly possible.
And that's really the whole game, right there. It's all about pushing those two levers. You're either making things last longer between failures, or you're getting them fixed way, way faster when they do fail. Any little push on either of those levers is going to boost your overall availability. So, let's look at a real-world example. The lecture we're breaking down talked about this electrical generator that was supposed to run 24/7. So over 123 days, it only failed twice, and the total time it was down for repairs was 3 days. When you do the math on that, you get an availability of 0.98. That's 98% uptime. Pretty darn good.
But check this out. Here's where it gets kinda weird. Not all downtime is created equal. You might think a machine that runs perfectly for months and then has one huge catastrophic failure is the best. But no. A machine with lots of little predictable glitches can actually be better. Why? Simple. Predictability is everything.
And this leads to a really fascinating and kind of scary insight. A lot of companies, they don't even bother logging those tiny downtimes. The 10 or 20-minute hiccups. And what happens? Well, it creates this totally false picture of reliability. Everything looks great on paper, but in the real world, it's a different story. And it's true, right? You can't fix a problem you don't even know you have.
All right, let's move on. Section 3, not all uptime is equal. Because it turns out the very definition of available can totally change depending on what you're doing.
So the pros really think about this in 3 different ways, or flavors. First, you've got steady-state availability. That's your long-term average. Think about a city's power grid. You want that to be reliable over months and years. Then there's instantaneous availability. This is all about, is it working right now? That's absolutely critical for, say, a hospital's backup generator. And finally, there's mission availability. This asks, will it work for this one specific, super important window of time? Think about a rocket launch sequence. It has to work for those few minutes, no matter what.
So what happens when you start connecting a bunch of these components together? That brings us to Section 4, a system's weakest link.
Okay, so first up, you've got systems in series. The perfect example is an old-school assembly line. Each station depends on the one right before it, and in a setup like this, if just one of those components fails, the whole thing just stops. The entire system grinds to a halt. It really is that classic idea, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link.
But here's the brilliant solution engineers came up with: parallel systems. Instead of a chain, you build in backups, what they call redundant paths. Now the system keeps on chugging along as long as at least one of those paths is working. And this right here, this is the secret sauce. This is how you build insanely reliable things, like the flight controls on an airplane, using individual parts that, on their own, are not perfect.
So now we get to Section 5, the big picture, OEE. Because as important as availability is, it turns out it's just one piece of a much, much bigger puzzle.
OEE, that stands for Overall Equipment Effectiveness, and it is the absolute gold standard for measuring how productive something really is. It's so smart because it combines 3 simple questions into one powerful score. First, availability. Was the machine even turned on and running when it should have been? Second,
performance. Okay, it was running, but was it going as fast as it was designed to? And third, quality. Of all the stuff it made, how much of it was actually good and not junk?
And when you look at it this way, this framework shows you the 6 big enemies that are constantly trying to kill your productivity. You've got 2 that hit your availability score, just flat-out breakdowns and all the time you waste on setups and adjustments. Then you've got 2 that hammer your performance, all those little stops and just running slower than top speed. And finally, 2 that destroy your quality, making defective products and just not getting as much good stuff out as you put in.
So when you see it all laid out, the goal becomes incredibly clear, right? Getting a world-class OEE score is all about fighting a war on 3 fronts. You're trying to shrink those availability losses, shrink the performance losses, and shrink the quality losses. Also, you can make that slice of truly productive time as big as possible. It's really the ultimate report card for how well your operation is running.
So, as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with a thought for the rest of your day. Think about your own tools. Your laptop that sometimes runs slow, your coffee machine that you have to jiggle just right to get it to work. What if you measured the OEE of your own daily life? How much real, quality uptime are you actually getting? And what are those little hidden losses that are stealing your productivity? It's kind of wild to think about, isn't it?